Hi, my name is Andreas Eaton. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tenity. I'm here today with Kaan Akin, our Chief Commercial Officer. Very nice to meet you.
I know, it's been a while now.
So we're talking about open innovation in 2024.
Yeah.
I think there's quite a bit experience we have together. I don't know, 100 years? No, that's probably a bit exaggerated.
Yeah, I mean, I would call 20 years maybe. But we do have a lot of people in different companies also have the experience. But with Tenity and headquarters becoming one, definitely we have minimum 20 years of experience in open innovation for sure.
It's good. So thank you. Maybe we have to quickly introduce to those who don't know Tenity. So Tenity, we are a global innovation ecosystem fostering innovation for the financial and insurance sector. What we do is basically we invest in pre-seed, seed companies in Europe and Southeast Asia via our programs, accelerator programs, and with our fund. And obviously also we help the most prominent incumbents, financial institutions and insurance companies to get access to startup innovation. And that's actually what open innovation is all about.
Yeah. I mean, lately, this is what we've been seeing. All of the companies that we work with great companies. They have hundreds of thousands of smart people, but still in their industries, there are so many new changes. And they really like to work with startups, new technologies, scientific models, so they can improve their solutions. And this is where we step in as Tenity. We work with them, create an access for them, a global ecosystem. And if they want to invest, and some they do, and we like to invest as well. So we invest in those new technologies which will change the industries that we are doing right now.
Cool. Maybe to kick it off, what do you think is, from your perspective, and happy to add, obviously, are the biggest challenges of corporates in our space, to actually run open innovation or to innovate?
I mean, if we think the last 10 years, when we were first starting, I would say all of the big companies that we work with, they were interested in their own stake of the game. And it changed significantly. So instead of one bank saying that this is my innovation, then everybody realized that this is an industry. So they cannot own that. The only thing they can do is they can move fast, meet with the startups, try to create a proof of concept and roll it to the market. And I think that was the biggest change in our ecosystem. And still today, some people in the corporates are a little bit slower. I mean, obviously, I do understand that because corporates are risk averse. So I would say one of the biggest problems is for them pulling the trigger, trying to work with them, or maybe starting the program altogether. I mean, do you have anything else?
No, I think I'm completely agreeing with you, obviously. What I think also I've seen, over the last, I would say 10 years that, corporates also changed their minds a bit of, not just, kind of partnering with startup, but also, investing into companies, because I think it's also super difficult, to actually, create new ideas or create new stuff, internally.
Yeah.
And, doing that is usually also the problem bit, that those ideas are not really tested on the market.
Yeah.
So one way how I've seen corporates can innovate is actually also investing into early stage companies just to learn what's going on, because these are market proofed kind of solutions, and it's a difference to when you do that in a lab and more inside out. So it's more like the outside in approach. I think the big challenge there is obviously that corporates are not really VCs. So a lot of them have burned their fingers, with doing investment in something which then eventually failed. And I think we from Tenity also worked quite, on solving that problem of, having our own kind of fund where basically we do the experiments for the corporates. So we give them access for, to innovation without being directly involved, right? There's maybe a financial exposure they have because, but with the high diversity of our portfolio, we can also mitigate that. Yeah. So that's kind of a little bit, a downside protection we create. So we do the experiments, and eventually, if these experiments are successful, we can actually then connect them, with this open innovation model with our corporate partners, and that's something which I think is quite a unique model.
I think like the investment thing is also not really new, but as you said, like a lot of corporates were like burnt their fingers because they need to set up fund structure, maybe have different teams. The culture of a working fund and versus the corporate thing is quite different. So they needed that. Like maybe 10 years ago, they might work with a startup, say that, oh, let's do that exclusively. But now they really want to use their data and they need a stake in the game. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense. Maybe like 20 years ago, think about a bank in Asia, bank in Switzerland, bank in UK, bank in Istanbul. I think they were really different. Now today, still they have their differences, but globally people expect the same things. Like you have like your challenger banks, so everybody kind of knows Revolut, for example, and expects some kind of a similar workflow from a bank for like 200 years from Europe, or a new bank just pops up. With no history like Revolut, and it can disrupt a huge ecosystem. So I think investment is one of the proven ways to get this open innovation, and maybe the less risky way of doing it, like maybe a partner like us. Yeah.
All right. So when we maybe look a little bit at the definition of success, so I think that's super important for our corporate partners, right?
Yes.
That they can measure. Obviously, if you do a financial investment or an investment into a company, you can, observe the progress, and then you can report some kind of, financial figures. But are there, from your perspective, some other ways to kind of measure the success of your innovation system?
I think like some of the innovations that they are looking for is not necessarily maybe improving the service, but maybe filling the gap. Like we have a lot of places where we need fraud detection on AI because now it's quite open. So in some of the cases, our either portfolio companies or alumni companies started to work with the banks, and they provenly decreased the fraud like 90%. This is no brainer, and they are super happy with that. Obviously, like those kind of changes take some time, or even like on the fringes of not just fintech, but sustainability. Then you get to understand your sustainability or like carbon footprint. I think that's a big change. One thing might be a little bit hard on the corporate level. Like obviously we worked for big companies as well previously. So people generally change like 3-4 years. So when you think about like innovation programs or investments, the horizon that you need to understand is like 10 years. So for some of the people, it is a little bit harder to say yes, because probably when they will see the successes, they are not going to be sitting at that spot. So maybe that's a kind of thing, but a lot of companies that we work for, like especially the companies in Europe, they're hundreds of years old. So they have a huge legacy. I think they can do that. And there is a lot of ways to measure those kind of points and the successes in the
Absolutely,
ecosystem.
yes. And I think also one of the, I would say, like biggest misconceptions we see in the whole kind of, innovation industry is kind of that short-term thinking,
Yes,
right?
true.
So there's, like budget or maybe some momentum within the corporate and say, now we need to do something. Maybe we have missed out on certain things in the past, and now, they want to catch up. And then they say, now we do the big innovation thing. Yeah. And then kind of the time horizons is like 12, maybe 24 months, right? Yeah. And then, they want to see results. Yeah. And I think that's something we've seen, very often, right? That within that short time, you can't actually show, real results because, it takes much longer. We know how long it takes to kind of scale a startup, right? And to establish, a solution on the market, to get a product market fit. And that means also, it's a long-term game, which is a bit, counterintuitive with what's happening in the corporates when, like the life cycle of maybe a decision maker is like 3 years. Yeah. Bonus conception and these kind of things are like, yearly results based and so on. So I think that's, do you see it differently?
No, 100%. The only thing that I want to say is we are quite close to insurance ecosystem as well, because we are really well founded in fintech and it touches that. So for years and years, how I talk about innovation is, it is like insurance. So if you're healthy, the insurance payments are going to be cheap. But if you are going to have big problems in your industry, if you are falling back, then you need to firing the whole cylinders. Like you need to invest, you need to buy a company, you need to merge, you need to do pivots. So I think, yes, that it will take some time, but as early as you can start, I think you will have a much good ground to understand it. And again, like I'm talking like Europe, Asia, but also US was a big thing. I mean, we have our experiences in US. So when you look at the top 500 companies in the world, they all have venture funds. Either they directly invest or they invest in funds like us. They have accelerators. I think the last number was like 82%. Again, either they do it by themselves or they do it with a partner like us. So it shows something. Like literally, this is something. It is like having like an HR department because yes, you have people like for the outside innovation, you need this. I will ask you something because I personally, one of the problems that I see with the open innovation, we have, for example, someone who's in charge of innovation, but the program or the startup they needs to work is in cybersecurity. So you have different silos in a company, then you need to bring those people in. So how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I think this is super important. That's why I'm personally a bit skeptical when you create this, I would say, like digital unit or innovation department, which is somehow not really fully embedded into the corporate structure, which is actually another island.
Yes.
And then, like they have the mandate to do innovation. And all the rest feels like, we are not innovative, so we need to just deliver our products. And I think, the way how it, from my perspective, worked best also with the partners we had, over the last 10 years was, when we had the direct access, or maybe if the innovation department within the corporate was actually the one who actually brought the right stakeholders together, right? Where also, the value is actually, created. So it means a lot on the product side, on the customer front, and those
Even the
kind of
marketing or
stakeholders
sales.
you need to have, need to involve in the kind of innovation process, because we are very often also not talking about, I would say, like crazy disruptive ideas. It's more like, how can you make sure that the company, can, be up to with technology and with the newest trends on the market, but more like in the reality and not in kind of, in the future, in some science fiction.
This is not science fiction, for
so that
sure.
means also, we need to have the people really working on some business processes and, are close to the customers being part of the innovation process, because otherwise it's just, a little bit, I would say, like a artificial theater play.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite common, right? Like the innovation theater that everybody was talking about. I think we had a next step for the, maybe now it's more doing, which is much better, obviously. It's not like granting startups and like applauding them, like literally they are trying to understand. Maybe one thing about this different silos, that's why we have different solutions, right? Like historically, both of us even coming from different backgrounds, then we ended up from like minimum engagement, maybe like corporate innovation or like venture building team exercises to fund investment. So which requires more resources, more timeline, so that all of those companies can actually bring more of their people and maybe bring them on the same level of innovation agency. So if you have a great startup, great founding team, and they can work with a bank, if that department in the bank is not interested, even the chief digital marketing officer or chief digital science officer, whatever, sometimes they kind of fail within the company. And unfortunately, we cannot do anything. The only thing is to help them to create this culture. And I think our ecosystem, being global, being with multi-brands, it helps. We've introduced a lot of innovation people, for example, common companies that we know, to other big corporates as well, because they need to socialize and maybe talk about this change within the company, not competing with each other.
Okay, so when I maybe summarize a bit, what we were talking about in the last couple of minutes, I mean, I think innovation is not just something you do voluntarily. So basically, you need to do it, right? So, but it's also not, something, as you said, like it's like HR. You just need it, right? It needs to be embedded in the whole kind of company structure and so on. So that means also it doesn't really need a special treatment. So it needs budget, obviously, it needs some people dedicated. So when a corporate wants to work with Tenity, you know, how is the best way to engage with us?
I mean, that's a great question, and we are improving on that every time, because we had, I think, maybe more than 70 global corporates we've been working with, including banks, payment companies, insurance companies, healthcare companies, even like governments. So I think the first idea is to understand what they are really looking for. So we have few different workshops that we like to do, understanding like what are their priorities, what kind of a solution or like result they need, and then what kind of time frame. Because as you said, like if they want a result in like 6 months, 12 months, obviously there are limited things that we can do really fast so that they can see, but we need to help them to create this innovation agenda for maybe 3 to 10 years. So I think like being with us, even before becoming our partners or limited partners like in our fund, we generally bring those people into, like we can introduce them to our cohorts in Spain, to Istanbul. They can join our demo days, they can join our like side events where they can see a lot of startups, so they can dip their toes to understand, because I'm sure that you have the same experience. Like there have been like a lot of corporates coming to us saying that, oh, I've seen the program that you are doing with HSBC, I want the same thing. But they don't actually, because they want something significantly different. On the outside, they might look really good, but I think the best way to go is just to reach us, so we can have like a good session of understanding, and then we will say that, hey guys, this is what we see, this is how we can test it, and if everything works out, perfect. Because I think we are quite proud of our churn rate. Like literally, nearly none of our customers go away. Like that's a beautiful thing, and it shows that what we are doing is good and we are kind of appreciated.
Maybe to add to that, I mean, those who have kind of decided to even become an investor into our fund, I mean, it's a very long-term relationship. So our fund life cycle usually is like 10 years.
Yes.
That means also we are, you know, kind of engaged with each other like for 10 years. And, you know, that also underlines a little bit, you know, like the commitment you need to have in these partnerships. And I think that's super important, that you also can maintain a very good relationship.
What do you think that are like short-term trends? What do we see more often now in terms of technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no surprise at the moment. I think this is, you know, true for the startups as well for the investors and for the corporates. I mean, it's the whole topic around AI.
Yes.
So the question is a bit, you know, what's the definition of AI and what's really, innovation in that space? I think, you know, there's just, you know, some capabilities, you know, which I think everyone wants to make sure that they don't miss out on it. So for me, it seems to be very much around productivity. So how can you increase productivity with using large language models and so on, especially in the financial and insurance sector, I would say, because it's less a deep tech space, right? There's some areas where I also believe with machine learning and, you know, there's those kind of technologies, you can solve a lot of problems which were not, you know, not solvable in the past. So that's definitely one area. Then I think the other one is a bit, you know, like the wave was probably, you know, the peak of, you know, expectation was probably 2, 3, 4 years ago with blockchain. Now actually became more like the Web3 play. So how can you decentralize certain things? How can you sensibly use, you know, blockchain technology to solve some problems? I think we're still kind of, you know, struggling a bit to find the right use cases. And, you know, there's existing solutions which still, you know, can solve the problems. But I think now with, with a lot of money flowing in R&D and, you know, with these ICOs, actually, you know, we see like there's some, interesting things going on. There's going to be a new wave of innovation coming out of the Web3 space. And I think that's beyond just, you know, crypto as an asset class, which I think is still relevant, has established, will not disappear, and it's probably relevant for every financial institution. But beyond that, it's, you know, it's still topics like cross-border payments, those kind of things where stablecoin can play a big role. Where also now the like national banks look at the concepts and will bring that into the infrastructure. So those kind of things. And thirdly, I would say it's and that's also no surprise. It's the whole topic around sustainability, because the financial and the insurance sector, they still have a massive kind of influence on, catalyzing, capital flowing into certain things who can actually support ESG goals. Mm-hmm. I think there's still a lot of problems in the industry of lack of standardization, terminology problems, data standardization problems. I think there's reporting solutions around in the meantime, because with all these net zero commitments we have seen, from the corporates, and the regulation coming up also now from the EU. I mean, corporates need to be able to report. So I think that's an opportunity space for startups and for innovation to solve that problem. But I think it needs to go beyond that, because reporting means like that you understand that you're not doing well. And then the question is, what can you do to make sure that you can fulfill your targets, or, actually stick to your commitments you made? So these are the three things I see at the moment.
I see that, I'm quite spot on all of these three things, definitely. I mean, but it might be AI, it might be a little bit like crypto. I think the security part of the things are quite interesting as well, because now, basically, especially in crypto, we are trying to take the value of the things that we know of and trying to store in different ways. Yes. So we do hear about a lot of fraud cases. Obviously, we have computing power is going immensely. We see NVIDIA's, and they are trying to create next generation chips all the time. So I think the security aspect of it will also come into play, maybe to the future. But what do you feel about the valuations in terms of the startups? Because we had a hype just during the COVID's first year. Then we had a massive hit, not just for the startups, it was for the corporates or the stock market as well. So what do you think about these three trended areas? Do you see it's inflated values?
As it's definitely on AI, it's inflated, but because the expectation is so huge. Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with this, I would say, public launch of ChatGPT, OpenAI, because I think now it's at the fingertips of everyone. Yeah. So everyone knows a bit, what is possible with it, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of the capability of the technology. So if you now look from that, then obviously there's a lot you can do, right? Yes. And now I think there is an inflated expectation of what is possible, which obviously also drives people to invest into, such companies. Yeah. Pretty natural, and then also that obviously drives valuations of these companies. If that's healthy, that's another story. I mean, we've seen that also with the ICOs or the blockchain topics. I think it's a little bit a repetitive pattern. Yeah. Other than that, maybe on more the traditional space of startups, SaaS startups, software startups, I think they got the hit from, I would say, the peak of the industry. Yeah. So, I mean, that's also good for, doing investments. It's I would say a natural correction. It's not, priced in huge expectations, because people know what software can do, and, what the software as a service business model can actually create as a value.
That's true. Core commercial products, if you are selling some kind of software to a company, it's $2,000 per month or something like that. Obviously, 3-4 years ago, you would expect maybe 10 years of ARR, which is including a lot of upsides, becoming really expensive on the investors, and basically investors are trying to get into those deals because you have few of those deals. Obviously, there are so many startups, but I also feel that commercially viable, regular technology deals, let's say, not moonshots, got a little bit cheaper. But also closer to the fair value because it was inflated. Yeah. On AI, I think one interesting thing is with crypto, yes, I think crypto is there to stay, in terms of treasury value, whatever. Use cases are still limited, but with AI, I think we have much more things. At least now with Google or OpenAI on Microsoft, any device that you touch, like Apple also had the Apple Intelligence. So right now, every regular person get to test it. Like I've seen a lot of people, they're talking about cryptocurrencies and they don't know how to buy it, what is a wallet, how to get it out of the system. I mean, probably it happened to people who are listening to us as well. Like people are saying that, okay, Khan, this is $1,000. Can you buy me Ether and I will get it from you? Like because it was kind of cumbersome to go to do those kind of things. With AI, I'm sure like everybody tried ChatGPT now on like even like the assistants and everything. So maybe it's more inflated even. We will see the skills of AI. Obviously it's incredible. But my point of view with AI, we will see a lot of specifications.
Yes.
Because what is this called, like hallucinations, right? Like you start chatting with any other like AI model, and if you start asking specific things, for example, in sustainability or finance, it just made things up because it doesn't really have it. So probably what we are going to see, AI models for fraud, AI models for like investment, like but specific like asset investment. So those kind of things are interesting. Then you'll need your LLMs, big large language models, and also specific people with the know-how of the market. Then it will bring up like a nice AI company. Right now, everybody's saying that, oh, I do AI in the company. But you know, like after seeing like 1,000 deal in the market, some AI companies are not AI companies.
That's still, for me, still not clear, right? Who is actually capturing the value?
Yeah.
And I'm a bit skeptical on just, using, I would say, like an open source LLM and then put some kind of, very simple use case on top of it. So you create kind of, like, I don't know what, the finance GPT or something like that. So I think it's an interesting maybe concept, but the question is, can you really address the market with that? So is it the business model and so on? I think this needs to be proven. I think we'll look at the space, right? And I think we receive a lot of kind of startup deal flow for that. We're talking to the corporates. We see, what is interesting for them, and then see what happens. Maybe to add to the security part, I fully agree with that. This is completely underestimated because also with, all technology, what usually also helps to be better in, being a criminal, or actually
it helps you
creating
scale
fraud.
if you want to do fraud.
Scale kind of phishing and all these kind of things. You can. This is super easy to do, and I think what we need is solutions who can, solve these problems. And I think, over the last couple of years, that was not so prominent, right? With cyber tech and all these kind of, using the technology to prevent kind of, fraud and these kind of things. And I think there's going to be a next wave of, interesting companies and interesting concepts coming up, and it's going to be super highly relevant for finance and insurance.
Just to wrap up, what do you want to say to people?
Absolutely. I think the call to action is a bit for the audience. Actually, if you are starting your company, solving a problem in the financial insurance sector, we have a lot of programs going on, in our hubs where we invest our funds. So apply for our programs. So that's for the founders, right?
Yes.
If you are, an investor and you want to be, directly or indirectly exposed to what we do with the startups, you can either invest into our fund. This is a nice way to do it. It's without heavy lifting, or you can also obviously become part of our co-investor network and co-invest with us. I think that's, what we want to do. And then if you're a corporate and in the financial and insurance sector, you don't have to be a bank, you don't have to be an insurance company, but maybe you're interested in fintech, in, technology, driving, financial services, then, you can also talk to us and we can maybe tailor something for you to deal with the challenges of open innovation and make you part of the Tenity global ecosystem. So I think that's a call to action for me. Khan is ready to have a chat with everyone.
Khan@tenity.com. Like this is like a plug. It's quite nice.
It was a very nice chat.
I know.
Thank you very much.
Likewise.
So now we go for a beer.
Let's do that.